Welcome to Salon Talks. I'm Mary Elizabeth Williams, and I'm sitting here today with Gabby Rivera. I'm so happy to see you today. She's a storyteller, a speaker, an editor, a poet, and an author. She is the writer of the solo series for America Chavez, Marvel's first queer Latina superhero. That's a big deal. I can't wait to ask you about that. And her TED Talk on radical craft has been viewed over 1 million times. I was one of them. And her acclaimed 2016 debut novel, Juliet Takes a Breath. Roxane Gay called it funny as hell, poignant, and fucking outstanding, is getting a new release in September from Penguin Young Readers. Hi, welcome.
Hello, hi. Thank you for having me.
That's a lot.
It is.
That's a lot of stuff. All right, I'm going to start with the book. I want to start with Juliet because this book is one of the things that helped put you on the map. Your debut novel came out 3 years ago, and now it's coming out again.
Isn't that wild?
It's wild. So first of all, can I ask why? I mean, what is
Sure.
I mean, it's getting this big release from a different publisher, but like, how did that come about?
I mean, first of all, Juliet Takes a Breath is the little book that could, right? It's got some wings on it. It came out of me writing in my mom's basement apartment, right? And so I can't believe it's made it off of that old computer I had and like here out into the world, right? And so I was with a print-on-demand publisher. And so I did most of that, getting it out into the world on my own, you know, like sending copies out into the world, buying my own copies. And Penguin now has come along and is like, we love this book so much that we want to make sure that it gets into as many hands, to as many young people as possible. And so they kind of scooped me right up, and we're on the move to publish September 17th to get Juliet into all those hands.
I like, and beginning of the school year. I mean, a fall release, but also like beginning of the school year. Right?
Get ready.
So get ready. So 3 years ago, we were living in a different America, right? Like we were actually living in so many ways, culturally different country. How is this book, is this book different now? Do you feel like the audience for it is different now? Do you feel like the conversation around it is different now?
I think there's always room for a story about a kid trying to find their way, right? No matter the climate, no matter the politics, there's always room for that story of self-discovery and understanding. And then with all the identities that Juliet has, right? She's Puerto Rican, from the Bronx. She is a baby dyke, right? And she's thick-bodied, all of these different things. That's where I think the relevancy of today's climate really hits, right? Because people are pissed. People want the stories that reflect them. People are tired of false narratives and liars, right? People are furious. And so this is the kind of book that kind of can bounce into your lap, bring you a little joy, and also help you like rage against the machine.
Yeah, and this is a book very much about, as you say, this is a young woman finding her own identity as opposed to having some white person just tell her what her identity is.
Yeah.
And that feels also more relevant than ever.
Totally. I mean, it's also like, you know, I feel like from the beginning, it's like patriarchy at first, right? It's like a man or your father or somebody dictating the rules of your body and what you can do, right? The religion, all this stuff. And then with Juliet Takes a Breath, takes a breath.
Take a breath.
It's like she has to combat this idea of like white feminism and white privilege and the ways that it impacts her. And that's something that probably before she goes on this adventure, she may not have had the language for. And that's what I wanted to offer too, right? One model, one set of language that can be used while you're exploring yourself in a world that often tells you it doesn't want you here.
Yeah, and what I really love about her, the character's journey, is she comes from this place of where she's kind of defining herself early on by that external language. Totally. And really thinking about like, well, am I a feminist? But is feminist like too white lady?
Literally,
you know,
yes.
right? Because I think my mom is a feminist person, but then she's kind of not. And
right.
like, how do I develop that language for myself? And I think that's something that is a real through line in the story that's so interesting to watch any young character.
Right. I mean, you know, because sometimes there's no one guiding you. Right, like especially if you're, you know, a young queer person navigating the world of color, if you have if you're disabled, all these different identities, right? Like, where is your story? Where do you see it? There's sometimes like no models of that existence that are joyous, that you survive, you know? And so that is what I was putting into Juliet as well. Like, here's this way for you to thrive in the world.
And this is a story very much about a young woman who finds a mentor. And not just the one sort of central mentor relationship in it, but the mentorship of the other women in her family, of her peers. And now you are in this place, Gabby, where you're a mentor, where you have in a very short span of time really become your own kind of elder statesperson. Oh
my gosh.
Right? Like, I don't want to age you, but like, you go around the country, you talk to colleges. That is a big, huge part of what you do. Like, totally, you are bringing up these other people who are coming right back, right there behind you,
what
right?
What a gift, what a joy.
I mean, it seems like that's always been a priority for you, even like as soon as you could, like, flip it around and become that sort of mentor figure.
That's what I'm trying to do. I feel like I have thrived in this world because of my mentors, and literally all my mentors have been women that have worked hard, that are hustling, starting with my mom and my grandmas, who worked their way up in this world and became professional educators and all this stuff. And then one of my mentors, the Reverend Kelly Brown Douglas, who taught me how to speak in my authentic voice while navigating a relationship with God, the divine. And then my Latina writing mentors. And the other queer, white, all sorts of actually women writers have fostered me. And so that is something I've always wanted to like offer to anybody else, everyone else, And when I go out there and I speak to young folks on being the joy that I experience being a Puerto Rican dyke from the Bronx, right? Sometimes they are just overwhelmed that someone has joy in those identities. And I love being able to share that with them and being like, no, this is for you. This joy is yours. Like, run, flourish, Yeah.
And do you feel like now looking at that, because I always feel like whenever you talk to younger people, you just learn so much from them. You learn as much from them as you can give.
100%.
And are you seeing a difference in this young generation coming up than what you were experiencing as a young woman?
To a degree, yes. I think because younger folks now have more access to vocabulary, they can specify their needs. Like, I love when young people pull me aside and say, okay, Juliet takes a breath. We love that she's Puerto Rican, that she's a baby dyke. In your next work, can you highlight young people that have disabilities? Can you highlight mental health more, because we need this? They're always like lovingly demanding like what the next move is and what they want to see in art, media, literature.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool.
It's so great. Like, yes, tell us, demand it, and also like go out and create it.
Right, that's the other step. So let's talk about America, not just the country.
Right.
But America, the character.
Oh my goodness.
So you were not necessarily a big Marvel person before this opportunity came along.
My family, yes, like big comic book folks, but
so maybe you sort of knew these characters peripherally, but so how deep a dive, so like, what is the process then of like getting yourself up to speed on this world and these characters? And again, here she's a character who has a mentor.
Yes.
This is a really important part of your story, Gabby. She has multiple mentors.
Yes, she does.
But she also very specifically has, I can say it's in your TED Talk, right?
Right.
It's like,
right,
it's not.
You can say it. Yeah,
so Storm is her mentor, right?
Totally.
She has like an older woman of color.
Yes.
Who is her mentor? Like, this is a big part of your narrative. So like, how were you just like, I need to figure out this universe because it's very big.
I mean, it is huge. And first of all, what a treat, right? To be the first Latina to write for Marvel Comics. Like, wow, wow, wow. And then not only that, I get to write the solo series for their first lesbian Latina character, America Chavez. So right away, I was like excited, like what a treat, And yeah, you do your work, you dive right in. Like, she already existed in the Marvel universe, so I read everything that they had already written about her. Marvel was excellent in sending me PDFs of like X-Men comics from the 80s and stuff. Like, oh, you want to write about Storm? Here's how we can help you prepare for Storm in this. And also, I did my research. I talked to my friends that are deep in the comic world, right? There's a trans Latina writer, May Rude, and she writes a lot of comics stuff for Autostraddle, for a lot of places. And I reached out to her and I was like, what do you love about America Chavez? What do you want to see in a comic written by me? You know, like, what do you expect? And because I reached to my communities first, that gave me a really good foundation to kind of go wild with America's story.
Yeah, it's really fun. And now you're like a name in the comic book world, right?
Gosh.
Like you're like a name. This is this is really cool. Has it changed the way now you have a relationship with comics? Like, has it become something that you...
I have fallen into that deep love with comics, and I especially have a soft spot for comics like coming from Boom Studios, where they do the Lumberjanes, they do Goldie Vance. It's all these comics about friendship and respect and love and difference, you know, like identities. Kids are like genderqueer and they're exploring themselves, and so I love that, like, gentle, excitable, like, fresh kind of young person comic, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's coming at it with like all this joy and curiosity and history. You also, like, you're very, very grounded in, like, we need to know our history. We need to know our, like, you, it's so in Juliet, it's so in everything you do. Like, you also are like...
Yeah, I mean, listen, identities aside, right? Because we can talk identities till the cows come home. This is still a story of a young person. Juliet Takes a Breath. Juliet is exploring herself, and she has questions about, what does it mean to be Puerto Rican? Is it just this parade that I go to with my family? Like, who were the young lords? Why don't I know about Lolita LeBron? Like, why do I know more about...
I didn't know about Lolita LeBron until I read this book. Like I literally had no idea.
We have ancestors that have been raging against the U.S. politics forever, you know? And so, yes, it's like a push. The same thing with America. I have one panel where I'm like, crack yourself wide open, forge your path, find your ancestors. And so in Juliet, it's the same thing. Like, we have the right to explore ourselves and go into our histories and say, this is who I am, this is who my people were, and this is what we demand for ourselves in the future, you know?
And I think in a culture where everything is so immediate and we forget from like literally what happened yesterday, right? There's just like, oh, remember like a week ago when we were all upset about this one thing and we all were paying attention to this and it's gone like this. To have this character and to have this example of take that time to reflect and take that time to look back and look at where any of us come from.
Totally. And that's why I'm like dropping in real folks, right? Like even in America Chavez's story, she goes to the University of Sonia Sotomayor. So Justice Sotomayor is this beautiful hologram that welcomes everybody into this school. And it's like, I am putting my real life heroes into the work that I'm doing. Because a lot of times I do not see my heroes reflected around me in this world. I tend to see more of the people that were violent towards us made into heroes, right? Like we're literally in New York City where 59th Street is Christopher Columbus Circle. So, you know, we've got those monuments.
With the statue.
Okay, with the statue and the fountains, but I put my monuments in my work.
Do you know that stop on the D at 163rd?
Which one?
The one where it has the mosaics. And there's a mosaic of, it's all people who lived in that neighborhood, and it's like James Baldwin, and then there's a mosaic of Sonia.
What?
You gotta go see it.
We gotta go.
You
my
gotta
goodness.
see it. It's just like all like it's just.
The D was never one of my trains. I'm a 2-train baby, but yes.
Okay, so that's not how you come to Yankee Stadium, but like you gotta see this. It's like gorgeous, and it's monuments to people like Sonia.
Yeah, and that's what I want everywhere. And you're right. Like we forget so much, but when you put it in your work, right, it's forever. And so forever that Juliet Takes a Breath exists will be like a little piece of Lolita LeBron, will be a little piece of the Young Lords, you know?
Yeah,
so.
And it's so, just even talking to you right now, like a word that comes up again, if I said to you, what's the word that you say a lot? What is one word that comes up again and again and again in everything you talk about, Gabby? Do you know what, what do you think you would say?
Joy.
Yes, joy. I don't mean to quiz you like that, but seriously, like joy is front and center in everything you do. And you talk about how, particularly, you did this interview, I watched you do it a couple of years ago, where you talk about how so often stories of Latina women have been rooted in tragedy.
Yes.
And you are extremely determined to make stories about joy.
Totally.
And to put joy and gentleness and softness and exuberance into these stories. And I think about Harvey Milk, I think every day about Harvey Milk, saying, you gotta give him hope.
Wow.
Right?
Yes, Harvey Milk.
Because it's very hard to be determined in the world and go out and change things if you feel sad all the time.
Here's the thing, right? It's not just like joy as kind of like a blank concept, like I am joyful because they got my Starbucks order right, or I'm joyful because I threw away those old sweatpants. It is like joy and revolution, right? So I never want to say like, put your pain away. It is like in that pain and in that community, when we are together, we are joy. We build it. And so for me, it's like my definition of joy has tragedy, it has violence, it has pain, it has suffering, but it is the beauty when we come together. And so yes, I move with that every day because I feel like I have to. If there's any responsibility that I feel that I have, it is to move with love and with joy and to hold space, you know, because there is so much pain and stuff.
that's what hope is, right? Like hope is not being immune to tragedy. It's experiencing it and then moving forward anyway.
Totally.
And that's really so much a huge part of what you do. And creating these characters who have so much strength, and also, it seems to me, really questioning that particularly Latino idea of machismo.
Right, machismo for sure.
And saying like, you know, there is strength in your gentleness, and that's so much a part of, I think, it's very clear, the women in your life and the women in your family.
Totally. And I mean, like, honestly, look at me. When I sit somewhere on the bus or a train, no one sits next to me. No one wants to sit next to a butch dyke with tattoos. Like, people tell me, oh my God, you're so nice in real life. I was like intimidated, or, you know, people have this idea of what it means to be me, to be in this body, to be in this gender presentation. And it is exhausting, you know, because like literally I just want to like hug your babies, play with your puppy, and like run around in the sun with you, you know? So like, that's what I want to put out in the world. That's what I want to share and say, hey, it's okay. Like, be happy, be joyful. Don't be afraid of me, but also don't disrespect me, you know?
Enjoy as a revolutionary act, right?
Yes.
Right?
1,000,000%.
I think that's a really amazing, important message to be putting out right now. I'm so grateful that you're out there, and I'm so excited that this story and this character is going to be getting into more hands and more lives and changing lives. Gabby, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Me. Gabby Rivera. The book, once again, is called Juliet Takes a Breath. You got to read it. You're going to love it. And in the meantime, go back and read America.
Read it all.
Read it all. Read it all. And watch her TED Talk. Oh, my God. Watch her TED Talk. It's really good stuff.
And love yourself.
And love yourself. Enjoy.
Yes.
Thanks,
hey,
Gabby.
thank you. I'm going to give you a hug.
All right. We get a hug. Oh, nice.